You know Graybar for electrical parts, but there's one more thing you may not be thinking of us for that can help maximize your next project's total value. Our pre-project planning services are designed to help you win the bid, save on labor costs, and keep your installers productive across your entire build. The sooner you call us, the better. Because when we're there from the beginning, we can anticipate your needs and help you solve problems before they become problems. Yep, Graybar does that.
Edition of the Show Before the Show podcast, the official podcast of minor league baseball. We got a lot to get to today, some very cool minor league baseball news as we welcome you into this week's episode. My name is Tyler Vaughn, just Benjamin Hill in New York City. Hi, Ben.
Hi, Tyler. Yeah, this is strange. Usually when you do your intro, then Sam and I kind of awkwardly stare at each other to decide who's going to speak first. But today there is no such issue because I am by myself with our good friend Samuel P. in beautiful Florida, checking out the spring training action, and of course follow him on Twitter and make sure, what is it, Sam Dykstra MILB,
right?
And, check out what he's up to, and check out MILB.com, or more specifically MLB Pipeline, to see everything he's up to. Anyway, we're not here to promote Sam.
Right.
We're here to have a great conversation.
I'm looking up who Sam Dykstra is. Oh, and it's a lady named Samantha Dykstra who has not tweeted since 2013. Because he's at Sam Dykstra MILB, and I was thinking, like, why doesn't he, at some point maybe just swap that over? Her bio lists her as being in Panama City, Florida. Maybe he could just swing by. You're like, hey, can I have the Twitter handle?
We got to mention that to him. Sam, take this into your own hands. Have a
see if you can hit up Samantha Dykstra in Panama City, Florida. See what you can do. Well, a lot to get to today, as noted. I got a couple of housekeeping items first. If you hear what sounds like let's just say a dog's paw smacking a plastic cone, that would be my foster dog Bandit's paw smacking his plastic cone. He got fixed on Monday. He has not yet figured out that he can't scratch his face through the cone. So like 10 times a day, he tries scratching his little noggin and he smacks the cone. And it's very interesting acoustic background info. Two, I probably sound worse than normal today because I'm in the process of selling my house. So I'm actually, there are showings all weekend. So I'm actually over at my mom's house staying for a few days and forgot my microphone. So I'm just doing it through the laptop mic. So now, as Bandit's bringing his bone over, he wants everybody to see the exciting Nylabone that he's got. So anyway, let's dive in. We got so much to get to on this week's episode of the Show Before the Show. And we start with a big item of news from minor league baseball's past, which is now once again, mercifully, minor league baseball is present. All minor league names for individual circuits, the 11 leagues that comprise the player development system known as minor league baseball, have returned for 2022. Last year, of course, there were regional geographic names for all of the minor league levels, AAA East, AAA West, etc. All of that gone. The historic league names have returned. So those are, of course, at the AAA level, the International League and the Pacific Coast League, AA Eastern League, Southern League, and Texas League. High A, the Midwest League, the Northwest League, and the South Atlantic League. And what is now known as Single A, no longer Low A, the California League, the Carolina League, and the Florida State League. I am gleeful about the return of these names. There were a lot more things that went on behind the scenes last year with the renaming of those leagues. It wasn't just, well, they changed the league names. There was a lot of stuff with the legal ramifications of getting everything licensed and all of that with trademarks and, and copyrighted things that were not available for the 2021 season. But thankfully, all of this has returned for 2022, and I could not be happier. There is so much minor league history tied into every one of these league names. The leagues and their fans and their teams deserve to be able to continue to embrace and further develop that history. I think this is just a fantastic development, Ben.
Oh, no, 100%. I made that point on Twitter yesterday. I know in the larger context of being a baseball fan or a sports fan, reverting back to historical names in minor league baseball might not really be on the radar. But, for those of us who really, make a living in minor league baseball or who are, work for teams and who are fans. It just means a lot to have that historical continuity throughout, and it just feels better to talk about the International League instead of the AAA East, and to be able to have a direct tie-in and reference point for long league histories, like in the International League's case, established 1884. I wrote a story about this, about all the changes on MLB Pipeline. You can check that out for a breakdown. But, the average age of these leagues is approximately 85 years old. I mean, the average league has been around for a long time. So there's so much history, and to be able to refer to them by these proper names is excellent. Of course, they've all changed somewhat since the last time they went by these names, because minor league baseball changed a lot in how it was restructured. Up through 2020, there were 14 minor leagues, and 4 of those were short season, and there were 10 full season leagues. Now we no longer have short season leagues, but we have 11 full season leagues. So, and that is because the Northwest League, which used to be short season, now is a full season league. So there you have it. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot to get into here. The general makeup of these leagues will be familiar in most cases to those who followed them in the past. But yeah, changes abound. And, a lot of those are changes that went into effect last year when they had the geographic names. So let's go through it and just kind of, share some memories and just be glad that these league names are back. We start with the AAA International League, of course, which has not been international for a long time, but in its past, it has had teams in Cuba and in Canada. The International League now has 20 teams, all 14 teams that used to be in the International League, as well as the St. Paul Saints, who are now a AAA team instead of independent ball. 4 previous PCL clubs, Pacific Coast League, Iowa, Memphis, Nashville, and Omaha, are all in the International League. Jacksonville, which had been a AA team, is in the International League. The International Leagues, had a team in Pawtucket. That team is, of course, now in Worcester, the Worcester Red Sox. So 20 teams, that's as big of a league as we've ever known in minor league baseball. But it's got those 14 core teams that were, have been part of the league for a long time. And there's roots in this league with certain franchises like, Toledo, Toledo, Buffalo, Columbus, Rochester, that go back decades and decades. And this is a great league. And of course, when I think about it, a lot of history, and probably the most notable historical event, 1946 in the International League. When it was truly international, the Montreal Royals had Jackie Robinson on the team, and he played that season in Montreal before debuting with Brooklyn the following year.
His only minor league baseball season. Yeah, that's one of the things I love about both these AAA leagues is they each kind of refer to their heritage with the name in ways that no longer apply to the leagues themselves. The International League is no longer international. Pacific Coast League really only has one team on the coast anymore, and that's Tacoma. And Tacoma actually was the team that was behind the creation of the Pacific Coast League's new logo, which is fully a big step forward from the last one. The last logo, I think anyone could admit, was kind of lame. It basically just said AAA baseball. There was very little acknowledgement that it was the Pacific Coast League's logo. But the new PCL mark, which was started by Tacoma and then finished off by the design staff at Major League Baseball, Pacific Coast League, established 1903 in a Navy roundel around a geographic landscape that has the Pacific Ocean in the foreground and then evergreen trees, a red rock formation, palm trees, and mountains in the background. And all of that is to symbolize the various geographic regions of the PCL these days, which is really cool. Yeah, the International League was founded in 1884. The Pacific Coast League was founded in 1903. The PCL, now 10 teams, has been noted 20 in the International League. PCL, a much smaller circuit with 10 teams, but this is one of, if not the most historic league among minor league baseball circuits. This is a league that back when Major League Baseball was localized to essentially the East Coast and then a little bit into the Midwest, the Pacific Coast League was kind of a third major league. That's always been the designation of the PCL's roots. And to be able to get that name back, get the International League's name back, is just such a tremendous step for fans and for, ownership and management and the baseball community that loves the minor leagues. There was not a whole lot of emotion tied to the name AAA West, we'll say. But for Tacoma, kind of fittingly, the oldest team in the PCL, which was established in 1960 and played in the Pacific Coast League every season of its franchise history, with the exception of last year, they won the only AAA West title. So you kind of wonder if at some point all of those records and the marks and all of that stuff will just kind of be folded into the history of the minor leagues as they now once again exist, or if they'll stand out there as sort of an odd duck season in 2021. But very cool stuff. And obviously two of the most historic names at the AAA level in the International League and the Pacific Coast League. AA, the Eastern League, the Southern League, and the Texas League, two leagues that trace their roots back to the 1880s, the Southern League 1885, Texas League 1888, and the Eastern League, which is the young circuit, the junior circuit among those. It was founded in 1923, so it's coming up on 100 years. This will be 100 seasons. Well, technically, I guess 99 with the cancellation of the 2020 season, but a lot of good stuff out of those three circuits in the AA level. What are the things that you think of most when you think of the Eastern, Southern, and Texas leagues, Ben?
Yeah, great leagues all around, and not a ton of changes overall. Eastern League, the only new team to the Eastern League compared to how it exists now versus 2020 is the Trenton Thunder were replaced as the Yankees AA affiliate with the Somerset Patriots, another Central Jersey entity. But beyond that, the makeup of that league is very stable. And Binghamton Rumble Ponies, we did a segment on them a couple weeks ago, just what it's like to play baseball in Binghamton. Hartford Yard Goats, Reading Fighting Phils, Tyler, your old stomping grounds of Altoona, home of the Curve, and as was pointed out on Twitter yesterday, the immortal Altoona Curve theme song, baseball, AA Eastern League baseball.
Yeah, it's back.
It's back.
It makes sense now.
Now it's not AA Northeast baseball. Ask our fans. It's AA Eastern League baseball, like it was meant to be in Altoona. The Southern League, again, huge roots. That one is, again, very similar to how it used to be. There are now 8 teams, only 8 teams in the league. Jackson Generals are no longer in the league. The Rocket City Trash Pandas played their first season in 2021. They had relocated from Mobile, so they are officially playing in the Southern League for the first time. And again, a lot of really old franchises in that league, especially Birmingham, Chattanooga, places where minor league baseball roots go to the 19th century. Same thing with the Texas League. Very familiar. Of course, it's not just teams in Texas, but more teams are in the Texas League there are more Texas-based teams in the Texas League than any other state. So at least it has that going for it. Wichita, the Wind Surge, they played their first season last year, AA affiliate of the Twins. So now Wichita is a Texas League team, and that marks the first time that Wichita hasn't had a team in the Texas League since the Wranglers packed up and moved to Springdale, Arkansas, home of the Northwest Arkansas Naturals. So good to have Texas League baseball back in Wichita, and that is the only minor league baseball team in all of Kansas.
The high A level, which of course was formerly known as Class A Advanced, now is high A, the Midwest League, the Northwest League, and the South Atlantic League. The Midwest League and the Northwest League, founded in 1947 and 1955. South Atlantic League is as old as the Pacific Coast League, and of course is one of the most hallowed leagues in all minor league baseball as well. I don't know if I have ever noticed this about the South Atlantic League's logo, but of course we have a new appreciation for all these logos that are back for 2022.
The League of Choice.
The League of Choice, a slogan that I'm not sure I was ever aware of before. The League of Choice. That is outstanding. How did I never, maybe I've recognized that at some point, but that stood out to me yesterday.
It's funny. Someone mentioned that on Twitter yesterday. So glad the League of Choice is back. And it sounded so familiar. And I was like, wait, what was the League of Choice? And I was reminded it was the South Atlantic League. And then it came rushing back. And then looking at the logo, I was like, it still says the League of Choice. And I wish I remembered who it was on Twitter, but he informed me that he thinks that motto, that slogan, can be traced directly back to John Henry Moss, who was the president of the South Atlantic League for decades and decades and decades, well into his 80s. He passed away, I want to say, within the last decade. But now every ballpark in the league, or at least did, have a John Henry Moss plaque. And it is still, I am proud to say, the League of Choice. But yeah, every high A league right now, Midwest, Northwest, and South Atlantic, those were all different classifications the last time they existed. Midwest and South Atlantic were Class A. which is now called Single A, which had been called Low A. Here, keep up with us here. And the Northwest League, as we mentioned before, was a short season circuit that is now full season, and that there's only 6 teams in that league, but they'd all previously existed in the short season form.
The Northwest League, by the way, I believe is the next newest logo outside of the Pacific Coast League, and friend of the podcast Todd Radom designed that logo. We had him on to talk about it a couple of years ago. Actually, we may have had Todd on just to talk about, he also did the Southern League and the Appalachian League's logos. The Appy League, of course, now no longer an affiliated league in minor league baseball, but a lot of fresh new marks across minor league baseball. Only one for the return of these names in 2022, but some fresh new logos. One of those is one of the 3 Single A leagues. So again, these leagues used to be known as Class A Advanced. They all then dropped down to what was last year known as Low A, although they weren't known by these league names. And now they are known as Single A, but that is the California League, the Carolina League, and the Florida State League. 3 leagues which used to be the only Class A Advanced circuits. Now they've dropped down to Single A, but these are kind of the entry grounds for prospects away from the complexes. So away from, well, not in the case of the Florida State League, of course, but away from short season ball with the rookie ball level squads in Arizona and Florida. The Cal League founded in 1941. Carolina League 1945, the Florida State League founded all the way back in 1919. These have had some geographic realignments in recent years, and not just due to the overall minor league baseball realignment, but teams that have moved in the Florida State League, a couple of teams that were added to the Carolina League from the California League. Those have been shifted around ever since now. There's a former AAA team that is now in the Single A California League in Fresno. So there's a lot of stuff that has changed with these leagues since they were last known by these names. But again, another great swath of names to have back.
Yeah, I mean, California League and Florida State League, California League, all California teams, not a ton of recent changes outside of Fresno, as Tyler just mentioned, and Florida State League, again, a lot of venerable franchises in that league, all of whom play in the major league spring training facilities, except for the Daytona Tortugas. Where we have seen the most shifting of teams between leagues is a lot of shifting between the Carolina League and the South Atlantic League, is where there's been a lot of recent changes. The South Atlantic League now has 3 former New York Penn League teams, Aberdeen, Brooklyn, and Hudson Valley, 2 former Carolina League teams, Wilmington and Winston-Salem, and the Bowling Green Hot Rods, which were formerly in the Midwest League, but who started out originally in the South Atlantic League. So they've come full circle. And likewise, the Carolina League, Augusta, Charleston, Columbia, Delmarva, and Kannapolis were all previously in the South Atlantic League. And the Fredericksburg Nationals are also in the Carolina League. And that team played their first season in 2021 after relocating from Woodbridge, Virginia, where they were known as the Potomac Nationals, and played at the immortal Fitz, Richard Fitzner Stadium, the Fitz. So I know between the two of us, we just covered a lot. I know it's hard to keep track of. Check out MILB.com for the official press release, MLB Pipeline for my article trying to break it down. I know there's a lot of specifics to maybe get used to or try to figure out, but at its core, these historic league names are back. Almost all the leagues have strong correlation to what had come before, and it's great to see this continuity in the history and traditions of minor league baseball.
Yeah, just thrilled with this news. And as Ben noted, you can read all that stuff at MILB.com and at MLB Pipeline. And with that, we're going to move on to our next round of discussion for the opening segment of this week's episode of the Show Before the Show. And sucks for you, Sam, you don't get to be here for it. Last week, we had so much fun talking about upcoming promotions at the AAA level in 2022. This week, we're going to do AA, and Sam's missing out on it. So, Ben, you and I get to riff about all the fun AA promotions.
Yeah, let's riff. This is going to be some great riffs, Black Sabbath level riffs. And speaking of Black Sabbath, I should not go on a tangent here, but we often tape these episodes, the New York based among us, myself and Sam, who's usually here with me, as you know, but we tape right across the street from Radio City. And often when I'm walking towards one of the conference rooms, the RA is cut off in the Radio City signage, which is vertical, and I just see DIO, Dio. And
Dio
then that
City.
makes me think of Black Sabbath, because after Ozzy left, they did two phenomenal albums, Heaven and Hell and Mob Rules, with Ronnie James Dio as the lead singer. So I often just see the DIO on the Radio City sign, and I like to think of it as a tribute to the late, great Ronnie James Dio. But anyway, we were talking about AA promo schedules, riffing on it. That's how we got started on that riff. I apologize. Sam cannot be here with us, and neither is Josh Jackson. And I say that because I want to start in talking about AA promos in Josh Jackson's home state, Maine, where the Portland Sea Dogs reside. And they've got a great promo schedule. And maybe there are other teams that have 3 different food-based identities all on one season's calendar, but I haven't seen it yet, except for in Portland, who are going to be the Whoopie Pies, the Red Snappers, which is the main hot dog. It's a red hot dog. And as we talked about a couple weeks ago, the Bean Suppas.
The Bean Suppas.
The Bean Suppas. And I guess a Red Snapper, you could combine this into one meal for sure. The Bean Suppas with some Red Snapper Franks and a Whoopie Pie for dessert. But I have 3 different food-themed identities on one promo schedule. That is really unique. Also, shout out to the Portland Sea Dogs. Minor league baseball, they're community organizations in a lot of ways. And we see a lot of promos paying tribute to people in the community. But they have a bus driver appreciation night and a dentist night. And,
that's pretty cool.
They're not as appreciated as often. I particularly like bus drivers because, they're getting people to their destinations safely. It can't be an easy job. And let's appreciate bus drivers, just like the Portland
nowadays, when for the last 2 years, they've been dealing with, driving around in a pandemic and being in an enclosed space with people. And good for the Sea Dogs to recognize civil servants like those who pilot our public transport. That's very cool.
Yeah. April 21st, Portland Sea Dogs. Bus driver appreciation night. We got to get Josh Jackson out there to cover it and interview some bus drivers. I said that jokingly, but then actually I think that'd be great. I'd love to see
like a great idea.
An article on Portland bus drivers. Then we got the New Hampshire Fisher Cats, still in New England, Manchester, New Hampshire. They've got a new bat dog, Benny the Bat Dog, and he's making his debut on May 13th. So if you're into bat dogs, check out Benny.
Is he named after Benny the Jet Rodriguez from The Sandlot?
That's a good question. I don't know. We'll have to look into that. But
got to do some digging, like a dog.
Sounds likely to me. And speaking of food-themed identities, we talked about this months ago, but they are going to be the Manchester Chicken Tenders on June 4th, because allegedly chicken tenders were invented in Manchester. I say allegedly. I shouldn't say it with so much skepticism, but you do find with a lot of these origin stories, they get a little murky. But Manchester, I believe it's a certain restaurant in Manchester, New Hampshire, has been selling chicken tenders since the very beginning, and perhaps really did invent them. So that's a great food-themed alternate identity. Binghamton Rumble Ponies, we had Eddie Saunders on from Binghamton a couple of weeks ago, talked about some of their promos. If you remember when they changed their name to the Rumble Ponies, there were other finalists in the name of the team contest. One of them was Stud Muffins, and the Rumble Ponies still do Stud Muffin promos. They will be the Stud Muffins on June 25th with a Bobble Muffin giveaway. So try to imagine what a Bobble Muffin might look like.
Got to be the top of the muffin, right? Like in the Seinfeld episode, top of the muffin to you. It just has to be, I would imagine it's just that above like the little foil part.
That sounds like you have a good visualization process.
Put a lot of thought into this. How would I make a muffin into a bobble?
A Bobble Stud Muffin, June 25th. And of course, they will once again be the Speedies on multiple occasions, celebrating the Binghamton specialty that is a Speedy marinated cubes of meat, skewered, served on a roll. Very famous in Binghamton. So they will be the Speedies. Let's move on to, where should we move on? Maybe Tyler, I mean, I know you're not necessarily a young man, but you're younger than me. So
I'm not young. That is true.
Yes. I mean, I did not mean that to be insulting, because I only said that in the context of me being even older.
We don't have our 30, whatever Sam is, 31-year-old around to make us both feel old. So that's good, at least.
Yeah, he's like a child compared to me. I don't mean to sound condescending, but sometimes I feel like Sam is, I don't want to say my son, but maybe my nephew,
Like a much younger brother. A nephew.
Younger brother. Maybe that's better. No, Sam's Sam is wise beyond his years.
He's
sometimes
an old soul.
Sometimes he actually feels older than me. Anyway, Dame Drops. Do you know who Dame Drops is?
I remember that name, but I don't remember anything about that name.
Yeah, he's a very social connected influencer. I wish I knew more about him, but I know the Yard Goats last year in Hartford.
Wait, that's why I know that name. He's the food guy.
Yeah.
He's the food guy who was in the Burger King commercials for some sandwich that they rolled out. But they had, yes, Hartford had a food stand that was entirely food of his creation last year.
Exactly. And they were very like creative, over the top things. I think recipes he'd maybe initially come up with in viral, internet videos. But now he's getting his own bobblehead, May 31st. So if you know more about Dame Drops, or is it Dime Drops? I don't even know. But that bobblehead,
I believe, is correct. Dame.
Yeah. That bobblehead drops on May 31st.
That's pretty cool. Good for that guy.
Yeah, so that's a pretty cool thing. And then June 30th, about a month later, the Yard Goats are staging There's Nothing to Do in Hartford night. And on the promo schedule, There's Nothing to Do in Hartford is written in that SpongeBob SquarePants alternating lower and uppercase, which when you do that on the internet, you're being sarcastic and mocking. So
right.
It's called There's Nothing to Do in Hartford night, but rest assured that will be dedicated to all the things there are to do in Hartford and making fun of the naysayers.
And if you need any inspiration for any of that, you can check out our Dunkin' Donuts Park Ballpark Guide, which is at milb.com/fan/ballpark-guide.
100%. And the fixed the fixed canine behind you agrees to check out Minor League Ballpark Guide.
I was wondering how clearly that came through.
The Akron Rubber Ducks, I think they're the most Eastern League team. They always do a lot of great promos. April 29th is Rob Thomas Appreciation Night, and that's not Rob Thomas, the lead singer of
that's too bad. I was like, are they just going to play Smooth by him and Carlos Santana the entire night? Like the whole stretch of pop culture from like 2000 to 2002?
I wouldn't be surprised if Rob Thomas night, they do get that song in. But Rob Thomas, and this is something that the Rubber Ducks have done every year for a while. I think it started with just choosing literally a random fan or just someone in the phone book and dedicating a night to them. Now they do it with season ticket holders, but they have like a drawing among season ticket holders and just make one night that person's like night. So Rob Thomas, whoever he may be in Akron, we know he's a season ticket holder. He gets his own night. I've always thought more teams should do that kind of promo of just honoring.
That is a very cool idea. Yeah.
Yeah. And literally every team can do it. Talk about adaptability. Like every team could do it. Rob Thomas is being appreciated on April 29th. The very next day is Just in Case night with an underwear giveaway, emergency underwear giveaway on Just in Case night. And then in the promo description, the team says one lucky fan, in addition to this underwear everyone will win a special stained pair. And I was just like,
is lucky in quotes there?
I don't know how lucky you are if you win a pair of stained underwear, but head to Akron on Just in Case night, get some emergency underwear, and maybe win a special stained pair while you're at it.
Or maybe it's an STAIND pair, like that terrible other early 2000s band.
There you go.
Stains underwear.
What was their big song?
Yeah, good question. It was oh man. And it's been a while since
yeah. I want to say that I saw the lead singer of Stained open for Willie Nelson, but I'll have to look into that. I'll have to look into that. But I think he had a spin-off career into more of a country type crooner.
Interesting. That also, upon a quick Google, Stained was formed in 1995. Wow. They were definitely. I was not aware of Stained until like the mid 2000s when I think they had a song breakthrough. But in that vein, I once saw Kings of Leon open for Bob Dylan. Like, talk about random crossovers. That dude opened for Willie Nelson, Kings of Leon for Bob. There's some weird touring musical acts. Anyway.
There really are. So speaking of Stained, get some Stained underwear in Akron on April 30th.
This is what we meant by riffing.
Yeah, this is a riff, You're either on board or you're not. Akron has a lot of other great stuff, but in the interest of time, let's just keep moving through, keep moving on until we find what? Until we find, the Altoona Curve. I mean, Tyler used to be Tyler who's being attacked by a dog, by a cone-wearing dog as we speak right now.
Cone-wearing dog.
The Altoona Curve. Let's see. They're wearing Mountain City jerseys all throughout the year on one day of the week, which would I forget what day it is, but whatever June 2nd is, June 16th, August 4th, and so on. Whatever day of the week that is, they're wearing Mountain City jerseys, like a new. I believe that's
like that is a Thursday.
Yeah, Thursday nights. I think that's a new alternate identity. It doesn't look like they brought Yinzers back, but that was a alternate identity they had in the past, referencing their Pittsburgh affiliation, and Yins being the Pittsburgh version of y'all, essentially. But
right.
No Yinzers, but Mountain City. Mountain City in Altoona this year. And hopefully they'll have a former broadcasters appreciation day. And,
yeah, me and Mike Passanisi, we could make the trip back.
Yeah,
go get some Texas hot dogs.
I think this needs to happen. Moving on to Harrisburg, Harrisburg Senators. One of the great things about the Harrisburg Senators in recent years, starting about 5 or 6 years ago, is that they began their life-size bobblehead Hall of Fame. And right. So every person in the team Hall of Fame has a life-size bobblehead that's on the concourse. Vlad Guerrero Sr. Was the first inductee, and he actually attended his induction ceremony. In other years, I think we've had Ryan Zimmerman, I believe, Matt Stairs, a couple other prominent Nationals players. So this year, it doesn't have the national appeal of some of those names, but they are inducting a local sports journalist, Greg Mace, to the Life-Size Bobblehead Hall of Fame.
That's pretty cool.
That is pretty cool. It's not maybe one that I'll write about or we'll talk about much, because Greg Mace, I think, is specific to Harrisburg, but I think that's really cool. And, as you and I both know, as the years have gone on, dedicated media coverage in market of minor league teams is increasingly hard to come by with today's newspaper climate, local news. And I know a lot of teams feel like, we're right here. They'd like more coverage. And, that sense of having more of a beat reporter or someone who's really a ballpark presence who, works all season long to write about how the team is doing is a comparative rarity these days. I don't know the specifics of Greg Mace's career, but I'm sure he spent a lot of time in Harrisburg with the Senators covering AA Eastern League baseball. And I think it's a cool person to honor. And let's see, keep going. So we could just talk forever about AA promos. The Tulsa Drillers are bringing back Noodlers Weekend. I believe we talked about that last year at some point, but noodlers are men and women in Oklahoma and I'm sure beyond. Noodling is catching a catfish, I believe, with your bare hands.
Yeah, it's like a certain tactic of how you essentially lure the fish in, I think, if I remember correctly. I did some reading about it when I wrote about Tulsa recently, but I don't have a whole lot of information on the noodling.
Yeah, well, any noodlers out there, you want to get in touch?
Let
us know. Podcast at milb.com. Let's move from Oklahoma to Texas. The Frisco Rough Riders always have a packed promo schedule. We talked about their Dallas Black Giants promos a couple weeks ago on the podcast, where they'll be suiting up as a Dallas area Negro League team. And but how about this? April 23rd, which I believe is one of their final home games in the month of April. April 23rd it's going to be May night with Chris Kirkpatrick of NSYNC.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's going to be May. I don't know all about this, but there's an NSYNC song that the lyric is it's going to be me, but the joke came online that it sounds like it's going to be May. So for years on the cusp of May, people post pictures of Justin Timberlake and say it's going to be May. The Rough Riders obviously couldn't get Timberlake out to the ballpark, but it's going to be May night. Has Chris Kirkpatrick.
They had to settle for Chris Kirkpatrick. Well, I can just remember there's a line in an Eminem song where it refers to Chris Kirkpatrick getting part of his anatomy kicked.
That is honestly my first association with him as well.
Same. I would not have remembered who Chris Kirkpatrick was part of. Sorry, Chris.
But hey, there's a lot of people who remember him, NSYNC really of our time or for us demographically, but I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who are going to be overjoyed to meet Chris Kirkpatrick.
That is true. There's going to be a lot of millennial music fans who will be at that Dr. Pepper ballpark that night.
100%. And so that's April 23rd. It's going to be May. And moving through. Pensacola Blue Wahoos. Again, lots of great stuff. We have this slow gestating idea to have some sort of segment devoted to on-field hosts and how well they're dressed and how well they do their routines. We'll get to that eventually, but I bring that up just to say that I believe the Pensacola Blue Wahoos are the only team giving away a bobblehead of their on-field MC. Come out June 17th for a Downtown Dave bobblehead, if you're a big fan of between inning MCs, as we all are. Another really interesting, or I'm sure coveted bobblehead they'll be doing is September 16th as part of their 10th anniversary celebration weekend, way at the end of the season. They're giving away a Watson and Watson bobblehead. Watson is Bubba Watson, professional golfer, Pensacola resident and part owner of the Blue Wahoos. Watson and Watson, the other Watson, is the team's dog, who is named after Bubba Watson. So Watson and Watson bobblehead featuring the golfer and the team bat dog together. Watson and Watson, September 16th at the Pensacola Blue Wahoos ballpark. So, we could just keep going on and on and on with these promos, but I feel like that was a pretty good riffing section.
There's some very good ones. And the High A promotions calendar will be coming up next week. And then Single A the week before opening day. As crazy as that is, we're getting closer and closer to the start of the 2022 minor league baseball season. I did just Google Eminem Chris Kirkpatrick beef. And apparently there wasn't really a beef. It just happened to rhyme. And Chris Kirkpatrick thinks it's very cool that he gets dissed in an Eminem song. It's in the song Without Me, by the way, which was 20 years old now. I think that came out in 2001. Bandit agrees.
I wanted to quote from that song, but I really can't think of anything in that whole stretch of lyrics that would be appropriate for this family-oriented podcast. But I believe it was around that time that Eminem was at the MTV Video Music Awards, and of his many beefs, this is one of the most hilarious. He had a beef with Triumph the Insult Comic Dog.
Right. Yes. That was a classic. It's a classic. I bet you can still find all of that on YouTube. Triumph. What a genius character. Why is anybody at a Triumph night yet? There's no Triumph the Insult Comic Dog night?
That would be amazing.
That would be
Triumph out to the ballpark, with his handler, Robert Smigel. That would be unbelievable.
I'm sure Conan would swing by. The Cal League team, somebody close to Los Angeles has got to be able to make that happen. Conan would probably
100%. And this is the value of riffing. One riff leads to another, and now we have a phenomenal idea for a minor league promo.
You're welcome, Inland Empire 66ers.
Yeah, there you go. Get out Triumph.
Rancho Cucamonga Quakes, I'm assuming.
It's going to happen. We just willed it into existence.
I like it. And again, as we say year after year, this is our 8th season of this podcast. The door is open to the show before the show podcast night at any minor league ballpark. If you want to fly us out, we only accept chartered jets and the highest quality of 5-star hotels. Those are just in our demands. But, any team that wants to make it happen, we're happy to join you.
Yeah, 100%. And, that, of course, there'd be a bobblehead giveaway in relation to that. But if you do want to save money, you could make the bobblehead of myself and Tyler, and then just on the base in parentheses, write like also Sam Dykstra, and that's good enough.
Yeah, I think that's a good plan. I think it probably costs prohibitively more to make it a 3-person bobblehead. So just make me and Ben, and then the plaque can have Sam's name and say absent on the day when this idea came up, Sam Dykstra. That sucks for him.
Yeah.
So I think that's a great plan. But you can read more about these things and, of course, the return of the minor league names at MILB.com and at MLB Pipeline as well. And that'll do it for our opening segment this week. He will join us. Samuel P. Dykstra will join the show from Florida, where he is exploring Grapefruit League parks and talking and seeing prospects and getting into the swing of baseball season, as we are just about 3 weeks away from minor league opening day. Sam Dykstra joins the show coming up next.
All right, listen up, nacho chips. Quiet down, crispy potatoes. This is the moment Velveeta's been preparing you for, and you're not about to crack under pressure. Today's the day to go all in on the drip. Velveeta's Heat and Eat Queso is the MVP of any game day spread, so stick by them, and you'll be golden. Now get out there and make delicious history. No tailgate party is complete without Velveeta.
In our first segment today with one Benjamin Hill, I described that my foster dog Bandit you may hear him scratching at his cone, or he shakes and you can hear his cone. Now that we've moved into segment number 2, he has picked up that same bone that he was chewing in segment number 1, but he's now laying right next to me chewing the bone. So we got some good gnat sound, as they say, for segment number 2 of the Show Before the Show podcast, where we are joined by the one and only Sam Dykstra from the Sunshine State of Florida. I recently wrote a story in which I referred to California as the Sunshine State for some reason, and I was dumb. Florida's the actual one. Hi, Sam. How is it down there? Sunshiny? Doesn't look like it.
No, it does not. It is gray. It has been a typical Florida spring, I will say. I feel like I can set my watch to the rainstorm that blows in late afternoon all the time, and it's a heck of a thing to get a tornado warning while you're driving down the street. Every device I have just going off, just saying seek shelter immediately.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, but no, it's good. It's good. It's good to be down here. You can sense it amongst everybody I talk to, and we'll get into this later. Whether it's fellow reporters, whether it's coaches, whether it's instructors, coordinators, people on the major league side, people on the minor league side. Spring is here. Like it is a full blown spring training here. Like even us reporters are allowed into the clubhouse. And I know that's a little too inside baseball, but that's not a thing reporters could do in 2021. It really helps with the relationships. And obviously it's the thing we couldn't do in 2020 either. So it feels as close to regular spring training as it's been since, those days in mid-March 2020. And I love it.
Well, we got a lot to dive into on this week's episode of the Show Before the Show on the baseball on-field side of things, obviously talking promos and the return of the minor league circuit names with Ben. Sam, before we get into all of the on-field stuff this week, your thoughts on the return of the minor league team names? We're both, guys who are in love with the history of baseball and the traditions of baseball and all that. Getting the names back just feels like a win. And, it kind of reminds me of Kevin Malone in the episode of The Office where he says, just feels good to win one. There's been a lot stacked against minor league baseball in the last couple of years with the pandemic and shortened seasons and limited crowds and the restructuring and all of that. To get the league names back feels very good. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, speaking of normalcy, right? Like what I was just saying about what spring training feels like, being able to call it the Pacific Coast League and not having to catch myself is amazing.
Yeah.
Yes, it's still weird to call the Pacific Coast League when it extends well into the country. I get that. And the Texas League is limited to Texas, and the Carolina League isn't, necessarily limited to the Carolinas. And now we have this
isn't international.
The South Atlantic League goes as far north as the Hudson Valley, for
right?
Crying out loud, which is not really south, but still it feels good and right. And it, I'm sure Ben brought this up because Ben loves this type of stuff, but now it just makes the 2021 season such an anomaly. And you're looking back at the record books and it's going to be like, when it was called AAA East, like that's just a small nugget of history now, which is kind of cool in itself. And
right.
I'm sure there will be, the versions of us in 2040 will be looking at that and writing stories for whatever the internet looks like then. And just being like, remember the year when it was AAA East? But yeah, just going back to all these leagues, you could tell from fans, you could tell from the teams that they were all excited to be back. In that kind of sense, it just feels so much more like a community when sometimes it's location based, but it's its own brand and not just a geographical direction. So I'm a big fan. I love it. No more calling anything the old Texas League. It's the current and future Texas League, and it's yeah. Thank you for asking me about that. Because
yeah,
I was really bummed to miss out on that conversation this week. Like the 1 week I go on the road, that would have been a really fun segment to be a part of. But yeah, no, I'm everything you guys said, I'm sure in the last segment, I will echo 10 times over.
It was all perfect and brilliant, as you would imagine,
Of course.
because that's what we do around here. So with that, let's dive into some baseball stuff. The last time that we talked to you on this very podcast was the day that an agreement was reached between Major League Baseball and the Major League Baseball Players Association to end the lockout that had been in place for the last few months and mercifully bring on the start of not only spring training, but the 2022 season. A week late, but that's fine. We'll handle better late than never start the season. There were so many things in the CBA negotiations that impact the way that prospects move to the major leagues, the pay that those prospects will get when they get to the major league level, their free agency, their time in their first organizations, all that type of stuff. Sam, just give us your biggest takeaways from what the CBA means for the next generation of ball players. There was that great story about Max Scherzer in the New York Times in which the premise was kind of Max Scherzer has been served very well by the current CBA. What is it that he's fighting for in the next one? And he said, I'm fighting for the next generation. And it seems like that was one of the most important things on the players' side. What are your biggest takeaways from the agreement that was reached?
Yeah, I mean, it's first off, it's just nice to get baseball back and to have the two sides get together and come to an agreement that's going to get us 162 Major League Baseball season. I know, our focus here is on the minor leagues, but the fact that, again, we could all use some dose of normalcy. 162 is normal. We're going to have that. That's huge. In terms of what impact it's going to have, you talk about, raising the minimum salary. That's going to have a real effect on these guys who are playing in their first, second, third years of, Major League Baseball. If you weren't necessarily a bonus baby and, you're coming up making the minimum Major League Baseball, it's still a good amount of money, but you want money that it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. You want a little bit more of that share, especially since historically it's those players in 0 to 3 years who are kind of taken advantage of the most in terms of pay. That you could have a really, really good rookie. We've seen it in recent years. We saw it last year with like a Wander Franco or a Jonathan India or whoever you want to name who's been a good rookie. They were making minimum salary that first year unless they had signed an extension, before they made their major league debut, and they're producing real value for the major league club. Raising the minimum salary allows them to, get a little bit more rewarded because of their, of their impact at the top level. Speaking of which, this idea of kind of not necessarily a bonus pool, but there being just a group of money that players are going to be able to tap into before their arbitration years, based off where they finish in awards voting, based off of some of their WAR stuff. I need to dig a little bit more into that. I've been doing so much spring training and prospect prep. I don't know all the details of it, but just having this pool of money that is, again, going to be distributed out to the biggest and most impactful young players, I think is certainly going to be helpful in getting these guys on the right track earlier in their careers. And hopefully that helps produce longer, more sustainable major league careers. So that's fascinating. The big thing for us is, and the league even said this themselves, trying to address what's called service time manipulation. Under the previous CBA and CBAs before that, it might have been in a club's best interest to wait a couple of weeks to bring up a top prospect, because if you didn't hit a certain amount of days, your free agency would be delayed a year. So you could play 150 games, or not 150 games necessarily, but you could be up for like 140 days, but it wouldn't count towards free agency. So it might be better to delay that. Teams will never say that. Chris Bryant filed a grievance against that a few years ago and lost in court. But still, you could kind of read tea leaves at times. Now they're trying to address this in the CBA between the agreement that the MLB and the MLBPA came to. Top prospects who finish first or second in Rookie of the Year voting will automatically receive a full year of service. So if you have somebody who comes up in the middle of the year, Wander Franco, to bring it back to him, he was a real Rookie of the Year candidate at a certain point last year. I mean, if he had come up in the middle of the year or even earlier, maybe he would have threatened that. Now, if he had finished first or second, he would have gotten a year of service anyways. He didn't get credited for that under the previous CBA, but he got close. So that's just something to keep in mind. There's going to be somebody like him coming up. So even if you do come up halfway through the season, you make enough impact, you could still get a full year of service based off your Rookie of the Year voting. And also, clubs promoting top prospects to opening day rosters will be eligible to receive draft picks if the player finishes in the top 3 of Rookie of the Year or top 5 in MVP or Cy Young voting. This is trying to actively promote clubs giving their prospects jobs on the first day of the season. Again, going back to service time manipulation, like if you think it's in your best interest to wait, well, maybe now it's not. You are able to get draft picks by having somebody on your opening day roster. We're already trying to figure out what that means if a player is injured. Adley Rutschman, news broke within the last 2 days that he has a triceps injury. It's putting him in jeopardy for opening day, both either with Baltimore or AAA Norfolk. So what does that mean for him if he's on the injured list on opening day? Does he still count towards this? Who knows? But you're looking at like the Tigers with Spencer Torkelson and Riley Green. Now it is in their best interest to have those guys on the roster no matter what on opening day. We'll see how the spring goes. Maybe they'll struggle. Maybe there's going to be a reason to send them back to Toledo. But those 2 guys are talented enough right now to be in the major leagues. And, you look at Bobby Witt Jr. for Kansas City. Is this going to help them push them over the edge? They've always been kind of aggressive with their prospects, but still giving them another advantage. And, getting guys to the major leagues as quickly as possible when they are ready should be the goal here. And this helps accomplish that. Now we'll see how it goes in practice, but I am interested in how this is going to shake out. And it is a promising step for sure.
Sam, the start to this season is so weird and different because ordinarily we would be, for the most part, looking at settled rosters going into 2022. If this was a normal spring training after a normal offseason, it was very much not a normal offseason. So there is a free agent carousel that is still spinning, that has seen some guys get paid a whole lot of money, some very perplexing deals. If you're somebody who lives in Denver, Colorado, for example, which I actually heard about that trade from, or the signing from you when you texted me yesterday. That was the first that I had seen the official Chris Bryant to the Rockies news. But Carlos Correa is still out there to be had. Freddie Freeman is headed to the Dodgers. There are still some huge names out there. We are also now seeing some monster trades. And I think in some circumstances, some very surprising trades. Matt Chapman and Matt Olson are now gone from the Oakland Athletics. They have been shipped out in exchange for a host of prospects. Chris Bassett the same way. Matt Chapman moving on to Toronto. Matt Olson goes to Atlanta. We saw a ton of prospects go from Atlanta to Oakland in that deal. The A's are restocking. There have been a lot of trades. The Cincinnati Reds have been undergoing a bit of a fire sale, which kind of comes as a surprise. The things that have been most important from a prospect perspective from the trades that have happened since the end of the lockout are what?
Yeah, I think it's just what the A's system looks like now. We were talking on the MLB pipeline side of like, hey, it's no secret. We're actually putting out lists this week in terms of top 10 positional lists. Team lists will be out next week. Top 100 will hopefully be out. But we can talk about that more next week when the list is actually out. But we were saying, like, we're putting together an A's list now. By the time it's out, there's going to be a lot more guys in the system because the A's had basically signaled they were on the market. They were ready to sell off some of their best players. And they did it pretty quickly after the CBA. I mean, it's crazy to think that the CBA was only ratified a week ago. And now 3 of their best players are elsewhere. And let me just read this through as quickly as I can here. All the new prospects that are in the A's system as a result of these trades: Zach Logue, Gunnar Hoglund, Kirby Snead, Kevin Smith, Christian Pache, Shea Langoliers, Ryan Cusick, Joey Estes, Adam Oller, and JT Ginn. And that's just so far. There's rumors abound that any team with starting pitching might look at Manea and Montes. This A's system, it's still not perfect. It's still, I just read off all those names. Pache and Langoliers are really the only 2 that are top 100 quality. And Pache, you can make an argument that he's not a top 100 prospect really anymore because the bat's not there. This is not primo talent that they are adding to their system. They are adding a lot of depth. Oller and Logue are basically major league ready pitchers right now, but they're like number 5 types. Ginn and Hoglund, both of those guys are coming off Tommy John surgery. Ginn's a little bit further along. Hoglund's probably going to come back second half of this year. both of those guys have pretty high ceilings. They're first round-esque talents. But again, they have an injury history. So there is some risk there. Kevin Smith really improved last year in the Toronto system. But I had my doubts about, he did it at an older age. He did it at AAA. The Blue Jays didn't really call him up that much. And he struggled when he was in the major leagues. What does that mean for him? Now he's going to get a real chance, in Oakland when he wouldn't in Toronto, because that's just a loaded infield. Fascinating to watch that. It's definitely a makeover of the system, but it's not flashy. It's not huge. It's not, I'm not going to say the A's are a top 10 system now. Is that what they're aiming for? I don't know. I don't think these are the moves, or these are the pieces you pick up if you're trying to just be like, we're going for high ceiling types. It's just not here. Outside of maybe Pache, if he can hit, the ceiling is pretty high for him. But I'm fascinated to see what the A's are going to do with these guys now, because if you are going to sell off a Chapman, Olson, and Bassett, those are guys you want in your organization. They're foundational pieces, and they have been for the A's for a few years now, at least in the case of Chapman and Olson. Dealing them, you got to hope that the next version of them is now in their system, because otherwise this is even tougher to swallow.
I gotta hit the unmute button when I want to talk generally. All right, we are talking to a guy who is present at spring training in Florida right now. You've gotten a chance to hit up some camps. What has stood out most to you? What are the things that you've noticed that you've seen? Obviously, you talked about how the feeling of spring training is just that spring training is back, and that is outstanding. Tell us more about what you've noticed. It's the first bark of the podcast. Tell us more about what you've noticed in Florida.
Yeah. So, a lot of what I've noticed so far is, and I thought this coming in, but it's just been kind of nice to hear from some of the people I've been talking to, and basically from what I've seen, to be honest, is that minor league camps, for the most part, in a lot of these places, started a month ago. In some places, like the Marlins, who I was talking to yesterday, they had guys down there in Jupiter in January. So they're really built up at this point. And you have the major leaguers coming in for a week. Now, major leaguers, a lot of them were working out on their own back home. They were ramping up in their own ways. It's not like they're that far off. But as we look at potential Grapefruit League and Cactus League games, it might be minor league heavy, because just the minor leaguers are so raring for game action. I've talked to multiple minor leaguers this week, and they're like, so where are you at right now? I'm ready to go. I just want to play games. I've been here for too long. I want to see some other players. I want to see some other pitchers, what have you. I'm ready to go. Let's get this on the road. Brett Beatty said that. Corey Lee said that. I feel like any player I talk to, they're raring to get going. So I think that's kind of fascinating. That's point one. In terms of guys who stood out to me, it's a lot of watching batting practice. It's a lot of watching fielding practice, which, again, don't get me wrong, is great. It's awesome to see these guys get going. But until we see them more in games, I'm going to withhold too much thought or too much. I don't want to get too excited about, somebody flashing something in batting practice. But two of the most impressive ones I saw were Jordan Walker of the St. Louis Cardinals system. Great conversation too, by the way. Check out a Q&A I did with him. That should be on MLB.com right now. Really fascinating conversation with him on how he's going to build on 2021. But the guy is massive. He's huge. He drew a Chris Bryant comp to himself. He wants to be versatile. He wants to be moving around, but he wants to show incredible power. He has the frame to do it. I was talking to another reporter at Cardinals camp, and I was like, yeah, I'm looking for Walker. She's like, oh, don't worry, you'll hear him.
You won't miss him. Wow.
Yeah, you'll hear his BP. Yes, you won't miss him because he stands above the crowd. Even like in a system with like Nolan Gorman and some of these other types, like you will find him because he's head and shoulders above everybody else. But also his BP is so loud, everybody pays attention. And this is when he's in big league camp now. So like Nolan Arenado was taking batting practice. Paul Goldschmidt was taking batting practice. People like to gather to watch Jordan Walker. So that was great to see. And then I also saw Ronnie Mauricio today in the New York Mets system. Mauricio is just pure plus power. It's all raw power right now. He did struggle at times last year in Brooklyn, but I think he could have been a 30 homer threat basically anywhere else had he played somewhere other than Coney Island. So I'll keep an eye out on that. He is a switch hitter, but some of the bombs he was hitting in BP today. They were well above the batter's eye in straightaway center. When he was trying to pull the ball, it was going even further. Really exciting to see what he can be. If he's going to stick at shortstop, we'll see how that's going to go. It sounds like they're also giving him some looks in the outfield, which is what they're doing with Brett Beatty and Mark Vientos, two of their other big power bats. But Mauricio and Walker, if there were two guys I came away most awestruck by, those were the ones this week.
And finally, this week's episode of the show, before the show, we've got some other news that surrounds the world of minor league baseball. There was a court decision this week that found that Major League Baseball owes minor league players damages for unpaid wages. Case of Aaron Senni et al. Versus the Kansas City Royals, technically, which was in the Northern District Court of California. A ruling came on Tuesday that MLB is liable for nearly $1.9 million in penalties on a California wage settlement claim from the plaintiffs in that case. There is so much stuff that goes into this. We felt like we should touch on it. Obviously, neither of us are legal experts, so we don't necessarily know all of the ramifications from this, but this feels like a pretty huge moment in this movement. And obviously it's something that the baseball industry has been watching for a long time, Sam, with this case.
Yeah. I mean, it's something, we've talked about it on the show in the past in terms of player pay and how things are kind of trending in that direction. And one thing I've always found fascinating is the teams that are willing to pay their players more seem to have happier players. It's funny how that works. But in terms of this suit being brought, it's something that this isn't going away just because, you said that the plaintiffs are entitled to nearly 1.8 or above $1.8 million in penalties on a California claim. It sounds like there's also things happening in Florida and Arizona. It also sounds like this isn't over. It's not like MLB just has to pay these two guys and then it's done. It's going to go to trial. That's going to begin in June. So we'll be checking in on this as the summer goes along. But obviously this was huge news for minor league pay, and we'll have to see both, what happens when it does go to trial, what the ramifications of that are, and, just how far this is going to go as the summer goes along.
So that's that from the Grapefruit League in Florida. We're going to step aside here from Josh Jackson. We'll be back to wrap up the show coming up next.
When you want your spring break to feel like and your kids' pool day to feel like and your hotel bed to feel like and room service to feel like, because at Hilton, hospitality feels like
your cabana's ready. Would you like fresh towels?
It matters where you stay. Book now at Hilton.com. Hilton, for the stay.
We interrupt this podcast to bring you another thrilling edition of Ghosts of the Miners. Now, here's your correspondent and host, Joshua Jackson.
Welcome back to Ghosts of the Miners, in which all of you out there in Radioland must identify the legitimate historical ball club hiding amidst the fraudulent pair. One was as real as the rising moon. The others are just a dream. In the last segment, I asked you which of the following minor league baseball teams did at one time exist. A, the Huntington Hothoofs. B, the Jonesboro Zebras. C, the Prairie Creek Pronghorns. What was black and white and played all over Arkansas in the early 20th C? Why, it was B, the Jonesboro Zebras. In an era when every ball player and his mother was suiting up in stripes and naming the team the Tigers, the Jonesboro Nine zigzagged their way into the Zebras moniker. Based in the natural state's Craighead County, the Jonesboro Zebras debuted in the Arkansas State League in 1909 and lasted 3 seasons. That iteration of the Arkansas State League, however, lasted only a few months of the Zebras' time in the sun. Founded in 2008, the league opened with the newly admitted Jonesboro Club the next year on April 19, but had exhausted itself chasing the Zebras by mid-July. Two of the Arkansas State League teams, the Newport-Batesville Pearl Diggers and our Hero Zebras, were doing so well at the gate that they refused to catch their Z's when the circuit folded. Instead, the Pearl Diggers dug in and the Zebras kicked until was born unto the land the Northeast Arkansas League, beginning that same month, on July 26, 1909 to be precise, with Jonesboro's Boswell Brown serving as president. All things being equus, the Zebras kept right on winning in the new league. 42-27 at the time of the Arkansas State League El Foldo, they went 30-23 to finish first in the first run of the Northeast Arkansas League. As for the next couple years, well, can a zebra change its stripes? Evidently. Or they may fade on occasion anyway. Jonesboro rehired original manager Center Rainey for the 1910 season, but finished third out of 4 teams. In 1911, the Zebras were fourth out of 4. And there were signs that the days of grazing the high grass were coming to an end as early as August 1910, 13 months after Jonesboro was sitting so pretty that it had outlasted the league that birthed it. The Caruthersville Twice-a-Week Democrat reported that the Jonesboro Baseball Association is suffering from a deficit in money matters. And team ownership announced a price increase. 50 cents admission for all adults, except for ladies in the grandstand who could continue to attend for free, and 25 cents for children. The team statement, in part, read, "It takes money, real ready money, to conduct a league team. These prices will probably prevail until the deficit is wiped out." The Zebras' problems affected the whole herd. The Northeast Arkansas League began 1911 without a Jonesboro franchise and finished it on July 5th without any franchises at all. And that's how the Zebras went from A to Z. Now, on to the question for next time. Which of these unfortunate sons were looking for love in the minors of yesteryear? A. The Sherman Orphans. B. The Wheeling Bachelors. C. The Pocatello Mourners. Want to know the answer? Grab a hanky. Or tune into the next Ghosts of the Miners. But for now, you'll have to excuse me. My producer Ben Hill is trying to sell soda at a home run derby, and he hasn't got any pop.
Final segment on this week's episode of the show. Before the show, we are getting very close to our Milb TV predictions for each week, which is very exciting. We're like 3 weeks away from that. Pretty exciting stuff. But yeah, man, nothing else from my end. You can watch spring training games at MLB TV, but Milb TV coming up real soon.
Yeah, I just want to mark this moment right now, Tyler. We did not have to say, hey, AAA opening day is April 5th. No matter what.
That is true.
This is like the first podcast we have not had to do that. I think we may have said that last week because still by the time we recorded, there was no CBA. So yeah, the begin April 7th. AAA opening day is April 5th. We'll have a whole preview of what to watch on that AAA opening day on MILB TV. But yeah, it just hit me now. We don't have to explain that anymore.
That's fantastic. I had not thought of that, and I'm very excited about it. Yeah. And all of the minor league team tweets being like, hey, just a PSA, we're starting on April whatever, no matter what happens with the major league. All of the social media staffs can rest easy. Nobody has to do that anymore.
I mean, I want them still promoting when they're
right. I did like it.
Yes.
But I'm very glad that they don't have to. It's not a necessity now. Now it's just a normal, like, hey, we're here also. Which is but yeah, that'll do it. When do you head back to New York?
I fly back tomorrow, and then I am off to Arizona in a couple weeks' time as well. I will be ending the month of March in Arizona. I did 5 teams here. I will do 5 teams there, getting the full spring training experience this year.
So be on the lookout for all of that at MLB Pipeline and at MILB.com. And that'll do it for this week's episode of the show before the show. He's Sam Dykstra. I'm Tyler Mon. Big shout out to Bandit, who somehow broke his cone in the midst of all of this recording. And for Sam and Ben and Josh and Bandit, I'm Tyler. I'll talk to you next week.